You are the pioneers. With your visions, your ideas, and your passion to make things better. And we are the ones who protect you from pitfalls. We are by your side whenever needed as a true fellow. Reliable, pragmatic, realistic. Together we make your product come alive. Imagine you enjoy improvement. Process fellows.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Very warm welcome to our today's webinar, Cybersecurity Audit or Assessment. Before my colleague Timo will explain some background information on that topic and how to achieve certain certificates and evidences to be, let's say, according to the standards. Let me just quickly introduce our company. I guess most of you already know Process Fellows from the Automotive SPICE context, but we are not only, let's say, operating in the Automotive SPICE world. We are also dealing with other topics. And like I said, we are in the area of project management, of course. Also, when it comes to agile methods, we're going to support you. But also when it comes to organizational changes, and this is also a main topic of our portfolio. And what we're going to talk about today, especially cybersecurity, this is also one of our topics. Basically, we are offering 4 kinds of services. So most of you, I will guess, know us from the assessment point of view. So we do many assessments for customers, but also we are kind of big on the training side. So these are 2 pillars. And then we have the consulting and coaching area, where we really do hands-on coaching with our customers and try to get the improvements for them and really support them on the daily job. I'm not sure if you have seen it from our LinkedIn post, but we are now offering a new feature. It's called SPICE for Cars. You can visit this on spiceforcars.com. This is a database, I would say, and it has several SPICE models included. And for these SPICE models, we mapped knowledge nuggets. And recently, we just received or achieved a certain milestone. So we have in total 500 knowledge nuggets added to certain base practices and generic practices. So this is really to understand the SPICE model a little bit more with some practical nuggets. So you can check this out on spiceforcars.com. It's really beneficial and helpful. In the introduction, you've seen already a short intro about our upcoming trainings. So this is the full picture here until November. Of course, we also have some trainings scheduled until December, but these are the next trainings planned. So we have many official INTAX trainings, which are already in the status guaranteed. So you can book your slot there. And then we have also some early bird discount tickets where you can get some discount on that. And matching to the topic, we also have the cybersecurity training in there. It's here in October, mid of October, the cybersecurity engineering takes place. So some organizational topics for that. I would like to give you just here some quick overview. So it's good that you stay muted through the presentation. We have the F&A session here, where you can type in your questions already during the presentation, and we will come back to this at the very end of the presentation. This webinar will be recorded, so it will be also on our YouTube channel and on our website. So you can also pass information forward to your colleagues if they have missed this. Okay, so now let's introduce you my colleague Timo. So he will be your presenter for today. Timo is INTAX Certified Principal Assessor and Instructor. He is also part of several working groups for INTAX. He's a well-known trainer in this area, of course. And one of his topics is cybersecurity, what we're going to talk about. And I would like to And over to you, Timo, now.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Thanks a lot, and yeah, welcome everybody to our webinar today about cybersecurity and talking about the question audit or assessment. And here, I would like to directly jump to the motivation of this webinar, that you know what are we talking about, and what is the background of this kind of discussion here. And the motivation is pretty easy. We're working with cybersecurity for a couple of years now already, and especially during the last month, as a member of the cybersecurity group, there were a lot of people talking about requirements that they received somewhere, standards that were mentioned, or methods they were struggling with. And to be honest, maybe you've got the same situation, that sometimes you're a little bit puzzled about all these topics that you hear about. And yeah, if you look at this, it looks a little bit like spaghetti. You see a lot of standards that were mentioned somewhere, sometimes really talking about the cybersecurity itself, like talking about an ISO SAE 21434, or you hear something about an ACSMS. Someone is talking about we need an audit or we need an assessment. And very often we even start with a kind of discussion afterwards to find out what is really the requirement, what is the expectation at the end. So what do you really need? And very often the people have not really a clear understanding of what is really the difference between an audit and an assessment, and what is needed at what moment in time in cybersecurity. And the reason is pretty easy, because those terms of audit and assessments, they are well known for many, many years, but they have been defined here slightly different in all kind of standards. And this is what I would like to use in this presentation here to first of all talk to you about what is really an audit, what is really an assessment, just by coming with the most important definitions here, and especially focusing on the topic of cybersecurity, and try to show you even where might be a different understanding between the cybersecurity audits, assessments, to other methods that we already know, and bringing it together to get a kind of overview of the purpose of these standards that here I just introduced already in the motivation slide, but that you as well saw a little bit in the appetizer of this webinar. And then you can see I picked out 5 of the most important standards here that are very common in the topic of cybersecurity. And these will be our parts or our steps 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, talking about the ISO SAE 21434, and ACSMS, the ISO PAS 5112, then Automotive SPICE for cybersecurity, and the UNECE Regulation 155. And here, after we see a lot about standards and expectations and maybe examples, I try to bring it together, because the biggest challenge typically is there for suppliers, because the suppliers, they are struggling with the requirements coming from an OEM or from their customers. And this is why I try to bring it together to a kind of recommendation. So what is helpful for companies when it's about cybersecurity audits and assessments here. Yeah, let's start to look at the definitions. And as I mentioned already, we're talking about cybersecurity today. And that's why I, first of all, bring the definitions of the ISO SAE 21434, as you can see in the top of the page. And there is in one of the first chapters already an overview with the most important definitions. And the first is the term audit. And they just mentioned it, audit. During the following text, they try to define it as an idea of a cybersecurity audit. And this is where you can see the definition inside of the standard. It's an examination of a process to determine the extent to which the process objectives are achieved. So you see an audit for the 21434 is a focus on a process. If you're already familiar with the with processes, you know, in companies, you have a lot of processes. Yeah, we're not only talking about development processes that are in use, we have as well organizational processes, we have supporting processes, process in human resources, process in controlling, and. So there are a lot of different processes. And the idea of an audit, first of all, is only to see is the objective of each and every process achieved. So it's very, very generic. And if we compare it to the idea, even in the standard of 26262, because the 2144 very often is addressing the idea of the ISO 26262 for functional safety, you can see that there are different kinds of audits already, because in 2144, this term of audit is already used in the chapter for organizational audit, means we're talking more about the idea of do we have organizational processes, so inside of our company, everything about roles, responsibilities in our company, and to see whether the objective of those processes are met. But as it is reference to the 26262, we also know that there is a different understanding of audit because they even use the term of a project-dependent confirmation measure, so a project-dependent audit. So audit is already a very, very tricky part. As you see, it can be used in different terms, more on the organizational level and more on the project-dependent level. And with this in mind, we know already that there is already a slight difference to the very common definition of an audit, and this comes from the ISO 9000. The ISO 9000, this is the standard where you have all the definitions for quality management systems, and this is the basis for standards like the ISO 9001 for quality management systems or the ITF standard here for quality management systems in the automotive. So if you check the 9000, it's an audit that is planned, or it's a planned review of quality management system to ensure that it meets the requirement and to identify potentials for improvement. So this is really focusing on management systems, so on organizational subject. Yeah, this definition alone already is one of the main causes of many misunderstandings when it's about the cybersecurity standard. Because if you just use the word audit in terms of cybersecurity, you never really know what is really meant. So is it, as used in one part of the standard, an organizational audit, or is it, as it is referencing the functional safety standard, more a project-dependent kind of measure here? But let's see this on the next slide. And first of all, let's put the second definition here as well. And this is talking about an assessment. The term assessment in 2144 is here just briefly described. It's just the judgment of cybersecurity. But again, you remember the 2144, they had the idea of not defining everything from scratch. They're just referencing the definitions of the 26262 here, the same than what you see already for an audit here. And if we look in the 26262 standard for functional safety, you see it's an examination of whether a characteristic of an item or element achieves the ISO objectives. So a different kind of method, but going more on a product view here. When we talk about an item or an element, you know, this is something, something physical. This is really talking about the result at the end. And assessment is more focusing on this kind of topic. And with this, we see there is again a kind of misunderstanding because the idea of assessment in both in cybersecurity and here, as you see in functional safety, this is not the same than what we know as an assessment from the world of SPICE. In SPICE, an assessment demonstrates that processes are not only implemented, but also constantly applied, leading to higher product quality and customer satisfaction. So it's more about a quality idea for your processes to be used with the idea that process quality will lead to better product quality at the end. So different standards and already using different kind of methods. And I try to bring this different objectives of those audits and assessments now on one page. And with this maybe it makes it easier for us. So the big gray box, it shows the idea of our quality management system within our organization. Quality management system, this is where we have the classical plan, do, check, act cycle. To know, we're trying to identify what the customer wants, how we can satisfy the customers, to have processes, responsibilities in place to use it in our daily work, and then to develop products at the end and to update our system here. One part of our quality management system are the development processes, the process that we need to produce a product at the end. And this is where I try to show you on the very right side then here the main output, and this is the product that will come out of those development activities here. So if we use now those terms, we see the different understanding of what we use in here. When we talk about audits, then typically this is with a focus on a management system, for example, the quality management system. If we use an audit like we see or use it for the ISO 9001, so as defined on the previous page, or if we use an audit in cybersecurity with a focus on organizational auditing, then this is a method where at the end we will receive a result that is pass or fail. That's the special topic of an audit here. Whenever you perform an audit, at the end, you will have an auditor, and the auditor will give you the result at the end if you pass an audit or you fail an audit. And if you pass an audit, there is a chance to really achieve a certificate. So a piece of paper that is signed that you can show around afterwards. It's a proof that you really have established, implemented such a management system. Down on the process, on the development process level, there is another method that is used, and this is the assessment as we know it from the world of SPICE, but as well, this is where the idea of a project-dependent audit is used. So an audit, project-dependent, is more a check of the used development process, the same, the assessment process, trying to discover the quality of the development process that you used. So they are having the same kind of focus here. And for those project-dependent audits, like you know from functional safety, but as well used in the world of cybersecurity, as well then for assessments, you do not have a pass-fail, no certificates here. You have the status of the process quality at the end. So this is where you just get a kind of report showing you how good are the processes at the moment. And finally, we have the idea of the cybersecurity assessments as we know it from the security standards. And with this, we have the product in focus. And this is where you can have a result in a cybersecurity assessment that tells you can release a product. It can be conditionally released. So it is okay to deliver, but you still have to do some follow-up activities, or it should not be released because the cybersecurity of this product is not ensured at the moment. So different methods now already used in 3 different categories, as you see here, focusing on organizational level, focusing on product development processes, and focusing on the product itself. So now let's try to bring those 3 categories down to all the standards. And before I we look into 5 most important standards in cybersecurity here, and to see what kind of method is used and in what kind of situation here, let's try to get an overview of those standards first of all. And this is where I try to create one big picture now of the most important standards here in cybersecurity. We start at the very left, and you see this is where we talk about international standards. So it is really worldwide. And this is where, first of all, there is one standard that is not cybersecurity, but is security, and very often mentioned in connection with the idea of cybersecurity. And this is the ISO 27001. You see in the box a very, very brief explanation of what the standard is. It helps companies comprehensively produce their information assets from data and system to employees. So it is about information security. cybersecurity is only one important topic of the complete information security within an organization. And there is a connection, because if you have an information security management in your system, as you see here comprehensively, it means all kind of assets in a company need to be protected. And everything that is from cybersecurity in your development projects is already one important asset. So this need to be handled as defined in 27001. And this is why in the standard of the ISO 21444, you already see references to the ISO 27001. Yeah, that's the next international standard that we very often, or that is the main standard here in cybersecurity. It's the ISO SAE 21434. The standard provides a structured framework for assessing threats, identifying risk, and implementing risk mitigation measures. So everything about cybersecurity typically is about risk management. So you never can produce something that is not showing any risk at all. And you can never try to be 100% secure in everything you do. That's not possible in the world of today. So this means it's a risk management. You try to identify the risk, to come up with a risk identification at the end, and then to define measures to mitigate the risk here. And the third international standard that is used in the cybersecurity context, especially, is the ISO PAS 5112. You can see international because it is as well in ISO standard. It helps organizations assess the impact of cybersecurity on their processes and ensure compliance with ISO SAE 21434. So you see, it is a standard that is a kind of guideline for implementation of the 21434, as you will see in a minute. So it serves as a kind of support here. Especially in Europe, although it is even used outside of Europe, as you know, is the UNECE regulation, coming from the UN, but then used for the European part. It's the regulation 155. Manufacturers must demonstrate a comprehensive cybersecurity risk management system based on the entire vehicle lifecycle. So this is a must for manufacturers to bring cars into market here. And with the UNECE 155, we have as well the 156, where vehicle manufacturers are responsible for introducing and operating a so-called SAMS, a software update management system that complies with standards and must demonstrate its conformity. So in Europe, we have two regulations, one more on the management of cybersecurity and the other one of handling updates of software in cybersecurity. Especially from the VDA, there are further standards that has been published. First of all, the VDA published a red book. This is called ACSMS. The ACSMS is a cybersecurity management system with a focus on the specifics in the automotive sector. So if you compare a little bit, the idea of 9001 is quality management system for everybody, and IATF is quality management system with focus on automotive. You can say we have now pretty much the same. We have a cybersecurity management system for everybody and an automotive cybersecurity management system specific for automotive here, published by the VDA. And as well, published by VDA, we have Automotive SPICE for cybersecurity. So it's a cybersecurity assessment model. And here it supplements the core of Automotive SPICE assessment model to incorporate cybersecurity specific processes into the established evaluation framework. So it's an add-on with additional processes you can use in the idea of Automotive SPICE here. Last but not least, other standards that are used in the world of cybersecurity as well is, first of all, the TISAX standard. This is where companies in the automotive industry can demonstrate their information security, which reduces effort and multiple audits. This means we have again an idea of security in general. We talk again about the idea of information security. So you could draw a dependency to the 27001, But again, you see, then there is a high dependency because TSAX really means, again, all kind of assets in your organization need to be handled in a secure way, including the assets coming from your development projects here. And we have the NIST. NIST is a framework here that is available, that is pretty famous and very often used in the idea of cybersecurity. You see, it's the NIST cybersecurity framework. It's a recognized voluntary guideline for companies worldwide to manage their cybersecurity risk and protect their systems. So this is a help, it's a support. So this is where you can find a lot of guidance for cybersecurity. And finally, we have the GB standards to ensure product safety, promote fair competition, and support technological advancements and innovation in China. This is, if you would like to draw a line, the partner of the UNECE standard, because this is what is expected in the world of China. You could add even more standards in the world of security, but you already see, this is why we're puzzled with all those definitions already, because we have a couple of standards, they all have connections to each other, and it's getting more and more complex to oversee all of them. I would like now to concentrate of them here. So this is where we look really in the world of cybersecurity in the 2144, the PAS standard, the UNECE regulation, the ACSMS, and the Automotive SPICE for cybersecurity here. For this webinar, enough to discuss. Let's start with the first. So ISO SAE 2144, what is expected? So if you check the requirement within the standard, you see there is an idea of a so-called cybersecurity assessment. So in the cybersecurity assessment, it's a check of all process activities, work products, reviews, and results for completeness, conformity, etc., to ensure that cybersecurity is guaranteed for the product at item level. So you focus on the product, you focus on the end results, and with focusing on the result, you already see everything that needs to be documented here, all kind of work products, all kind of confirmation reviews that you have performed. And this is, you remember at the beginning, I showed you already, this is performed independently to show whether a product at the end can be released, conditionally released or not released. And if it comes to the other term, to the cybersecurity audit that is mentioned in the 2144, this is where if we read a requirement about this, it maybe makes sense to ask again, what kind of audit do you really expect? Because we will see that the term is used already in a chapter that is called Organizational Cybersecurity Audit. So an audit based on the CESMS, the Cybersecurity Management System. So it's a check that this kind of management system has been established. And the idea is that this can be proven already by other standards that are available. And this is where we see the international standard of the 5112 or an ACSMS when we focus on the automotive sector, the standard that has been published by the VDA. So that's the main idea of an organizational cybersecurity audit, but we have to be careful because as the term is using again the definition of the 26262, sometimes this idea of audit is as well used as an idea of a cybersecurity audit, so project-specific audit, a check that all activities of cybersecurity of the process has been performed as planned. So this is more a continuous check of the development process to see the status of our cybersecurity activities within a project. So that's maybe the first topic you should just remember. When it comes to the term of audit in the 2144, be careful and maybe ask again, what are you expecting? Do we talk about an organizational audit or project-dependent audit here? ACSMS was used already, and the ACSMS published by the VDA, we have only the so-called audit. So an audit means this is an audit of a cybersecurity management system, and you see cybersecurity management system with a focus in automotive, and this is why they call it ACSMS. It's a check that this system has been established at OEM and supplier side. So yeah, again, for everybody within the complete supply chain here. It is based on the requirements of the UNECE 155. It defines an exemplary questionnaire for the audit as well as requirements for auditors. So they have published a standard based on the UNECE regulation. At the end, if you use this kind of questionnaire that is delivered with the ACSMS, you can pass an audit, you can fail with measures, or you can completely fail an audit here, means you might have follow-up activities to get a kind of certificate of your ACSMS here. This certificate is very often required by OEMs. And this is because this standard is for both OEM and supplier side. And if an OEM knows they need to prove a cybersecurity management system for their projects, then they give this kind of requirement to their sub-suppliers and to the sub-suppliers. Please prove that you have a cybersecurity management system in place. And this is done then based on the idea or the main requirements of the UNECE standard here. As you know it already from other VDA standards, this standard is defined pretty much the same than all the other VDA standards. It defines questions. For each question in the questionnaire, you have a relevant minimum requirement. So they try to write down what is typically expected here. And you see what kind of topics they address. They talk about cybersecurity management, risk identification, risk assessment, categorization and management, consistency check, updating a risk assessment, incident response, reporting, and the management in the supply chain. So they pick out the most important aspects here in the world of cybersecurity based on the chapters that you have in a UNECE and trying to formulate mandatory requirements here. That's the ACSMS audit. And comparable to this, we have then the audit that you can see in the ISO PAS 5112. And I had a lot of discussion, what is now helpful for what company? Do we need a management system according to VDA, here, the ACSMS, or according to the ISO PAS 5112? And this is where I try to show you now the difference. Again, we perform an audit, and again, we are going to check that the cybersecurity management system has been established. And again, it is done at both levels. You can do it on OEM level, you can do it on supplier side. The basis of the standard is something different because now we are based on the ISO SAE 21434. So it's another standard that we use. We're more on the basic idea of cybersecurity here. But again, we have a questionnaire. And the in the annex of this standard, again, it comes with a questionnaire that we can use for an audit. It as well gives us requirements for the audit process itself, but the audit process is defined not in a completely new way. It is based on the ISO 19011 standard that is not mentioned yet in this presentation here. So this is the official audit standard. Yeah, this is the standard where it's the definition of how to perform audits and how to certify auditors. So more based on international standards here. At the end, it looks pretty much the same because this kind of audit, you can pass, you have a conditional pass, or you can fail it. And again, it's possible to get a kind of certificate at the end to prove that you have a cybersecurity management system in place. This is why, again, this might be required by OEMs, and it can be seen really as an alternative for ACSMS. We had a discussion sometimes that, especially when you're working for European customers, they are more into the idea of an ACSMS. If you work more worldwide, they are more into the idea of the ISO PAS 5112. But they are pretty much exchangeable because again, yeah, you see this kind of questionnaire comes with objectives, guidelines, to perform this kind of audit and exemplary evidences. And again, if you check the topics here, it's about cybersecurity management, continual activities, risk assessment, concept and product development, post-development, and distributed activities. So it is following the chapters of the 2144, but with a focus on organizational management here. Those were the two standards that were used for the management systems within cybersecurity. Only two more to go. Let's look into the world of Automotive SPICE, and there's the standard of Automotive SPICE for cybersecurity. We have only a clear definition for an assessment here in this standard, and this can be performed as a kind of combined assessment, means you use the standard of Automotive SPICE for cybersecurity together with the original Automotive SPICE standard, or as a kind of add-on assessment. So you perform two kind of interviews, one for the traditional Automotive SPICE and the other one afterwards for the process of cybersecurity. But at the end, both standards need to be applied when you're working in cybersecurity. This idea of assessment is the evaluation of the development processes for the entire system in a combined, so you see already combined means we're talking about development activities on system, hardware, software, and cybersecurity level, or as an add-on where you perform cybersecurity development based on the existing Automotive SPICE. And the goal is to identify the process improvements and to determine the capability of the used processes. This is why at the end, you just have this kind of report, as you know already from the world of Automotive SPICE. It shows you the process quality of your cybersecurity activities. This is the focus of Automotive SPICE. So the idea was not focusing on the organizational activities in cybersecurity, more on the project specific development activities. But a remark here that the coverage of the project specific cybersecurity management activities, they depend on the target level and the assessor education. With other words, if you perform an Automotive SPICE for cybersecurity assessment somewhere for projects in cybersecurity, if you're looking only for lower levels in Automotive SPICE, you can never see whether those activities have been really planned, monitored, adjusted, whether resources and skills have been ensured for those activities. And as well, it depends on the assessor education. So you need to ensure that assessors have sufficient knowledge, and sufficient knowledge typically does not only come from trainings, comes as well from basic knowledge in cybersecurity here. Finally, we have the UNECE standard, the regulation 155 that I pick out for this webinar here. And in the UNECE standard, they again use the two definitions of an audit and an assessment. And an audit in the UNECE standard, this is an audit of a cybersecurity management system again. So an official independent audit that at the end, again, can pass or fail. So you can get really a certificate of your cybersecurity management system. So they check in a cybersecurity system that this has been established. But as you know, the UNECE is mandatory on OEM level. So this is why this cybersecurity management system is checked on OEM level only. It focuses especially on a subset of the requirements of the 2144. And here there is a chapter 5 in the 2144 where you see what kind of organizational activities are expected for cybersecurity. Therefore, the work products as evidence will be evaluated, and this may be already proven by a certificate of the PAS 5112 or the ACSMS. So this is the idea of this kind of connection. When an OEM knows he needs to prove the cybersecurity management system is in place already, they try to prove this kind of requirement already with an existing certificate according to 5112 or ACSMS. And the second method used in the UCNE world is the assessment. And again, we have a different usage of the word assessment, again, do not mix it up with other assessment that we are talking about. It's an assessment of the product now. The existing work products are used as evidence. Again, we talk about a subset of the ISO standard 2144, and they are evaluated to ensure established cybersecurity at item level. So the idea of the cybersecurity assessment as it is defined in 2144, but not in the complete context, because we are again working only on a subset, so not the complete aspect. And this assessment at the end comes again with an idea of pass-fail, and the result is not really a kind of certificate, it's more the kind of type approval. So if an OEM, and this is why, please remember, mandatory only on OEM level, if an OEM wants to put a new car onto market, they first of all need a proof of the cybersecurity management system, the 5112, and they need to show that the product they want to release gets a type approval with this kind of assessment here. By the way, the annex of this standard, the UNECE, I want to mention here, this is very often used even by OEMs to be given to a supplier, because it already gives an important input that can be used for the TARA, for the threat assessment and risk analysis here at supplier side here. And if you remember that an OEM is, or it's mandatory for an OEM to focus on these kind of subjects here, this is why they derive requirements for their sub-suppliers here. So if they know they need to prove an audit of a cybersecurity management system, and they know this can be proven already by those two standards, they give this kind of requirement to their sub-suppliers here. And if they know they need to prove the product is secure with the kind of assessment here, they want a proof as well from their sub-suppliers here. Here again, I'm pretty sure a lot of information for you. Maybe it was possible to get the picture a little bit clearer for you. And maybe if you are going to work with these topics in the future, you remember this presentation or look it up in YouTube to remember, hey, this was how it was used in this kind of standard. But to close this kind of webinar, I would like to put it together with a recommendation now with a focus on sub-suppliers. Because as we see in the last slide, there was the mandatory requirement for an OEM already, and this is why a customer, especially an OEM, typically defines requirements as follows. They want the sub-supplier to provide a certificate of a CESMS, so of a cybersecurity management system, and they want the supplier to ensure development according to ISO SAE 2144. So what is it a sub-supplier can do now? First of all, to prove this kind of certificate, the sub-supplier should implement a management system, and this is where we talk about having processes for cybersecurity in place, to provide templates for development according to cybersecurity, to provide even guidelines, what kind of methods, metrics, etc. are used, roles to be assigned for development, responsibilities, who is going to do it, who's going to review it, who's going to approve it, the communication channel, the reporting, and as well the escalation if something is not working. And very often this is where external support is helpful, because the basic understanding of cybersecurity might be existing, but the idea is not to develop this completely from scratch. As you have seen in the beginning of this webinar, it's more to implement this in the idea of an existing quality management system. And so this is a kind of add-on that should be defined within the company. It's helpful to, first of all, check the performance of your cybersecurity management system. This is where you perform a kind of informal audit or so-called gap analysis. And this is where this might be already based on the established standards of the ACSMS or the ISO PAS 5112 to see whether those requirements if you remember, based on existing standards have been fulfilled. And then you can have the official audit of a cybersecurity management system to really come up with a kind of certificate for this year. And the second requirement to ensure that you have a development according to the 2144, this is going to the projects now. This is where you have to perform the cybersecurity activities as part of your regular development. So it's not something that you do beside regular development. It is included already. So you use an established, or you establish the templates here. You seek for useful combination of cybersecurity with existing development practices already. Again, external support might help, especially because those activities very often are already known by many developers, but the kind of connection with existing activities is not that familiar here. How can we check it? Again, a kind of internal check makes sense. So performing kind of your internal assessments on the performance here, or kind of gap analysis. And again, there are two standards that can be used here. One is really the complete focus of the 2144. So it covers even parts of the management system, but in this kind of a gap analysis, you could focus more on the project development aspect of the 2144, or you use the standard for Automotive SPICE for cybersecurity. But remember, with ensuring the sufficient knowledge of the people here. Because at the end, what you're performing here in the blue box depends really on what the customer is already addressing. Because the customer or OEM in this kind, they will typically in their requirements already address how this should be ensured by a cybersecurity assessment. And if we talk about cybersecurity assessment, remember, we talk about ISO SAE 2144. So really a complete check of following this requirement for the complete product development here, or if sufficient, the Automotive SPICE for cybersecurity assessment afterwards. So with this picture, hopefully it brings a little bit all those requirements, all those standards and methods now into one picture here, that you got an idea of how to prepare to follow up those requirements that are coming here from the customers here. And with this, I'm here to say thank you for listening, and I'm looking forward for questions now.
Yeah, thank you, Timo, for this very good overview and presentation. We have one question already from Bala Shaman. Do you have any overview comparison related to the effort, organization, project, auditor, assessor needed for these different type of audits assessments?
There is no overview I can already show talking about the expected effort. One big problem, so I'm sorry that there's nothing I can show you right away, but please remember the kind of effort is as well really depending on the kind of organization. Maybe just to, if we talk about the next the previous slide, what I just performed a couple of times is a kind of gap analysis for the 2144 to prepare companies to succeed in an official 2144 assessment afterwards. And I can tell you there were companies where they have only a not very complex product, and only 2 days were enough to get an overview of the complete 2144. But there were other projects where we needed really a complete week to get the complete picture. So this is why it's very, very hard to give you already an estimation here. Sorry.
Thanks for the answer. By the way, everyone in the line can also unmute themselves. So now you can directly talk to Timo if you like to. But I see that we also have a new question here. Okay, this goes kind of in the same direction. What is the duration of an audit certification?
Certification audit. So again, really depends on this kind of organization. you have one questionnaire that if you really say you want to perform a certification for PAS 5112 or ACSMS, so this is what can be done during 2 days, typically already. But very often it is even combined with the quality management system audit to have less effort here. And again, it depends on the kind of organization. Here, the bigger the organization, or the more sites you have in your organization, the more the effort will be, or the higher.
Okay, thanks. Oh, we have still a couple of minutes to discuss. So can ask Timo right away, or like I said, type it in the F&A section.
So, Timo, good afternoon. The question was more about once I get the certification, for how long does it last?
The certification typically is 3 years. So like a certification of your 9001 or IATF, it lasts 3 years, and then you have the renewal of an audit.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay, this was also the follow-up question. Yeah.
Yeah, good.
And the last line here, cybersecurity of Automotive SPICE or cybersecurity assessment. It points out to an ISO 21434 audit assessment, however, or an ASPICE assessment. How does this ISO 21434 assessment look like?
Much more complex. So ISO 21434 assessment. So if I go back to the picture, this is what. Give me the chance. Oh, there we are. Yeah, this is on the top. So this is where, yes, it really took a long time, because at the end, the assessor, the cybersecurity assessor, wants to see whether the product at the end can be released, only conditional released, or should not be released. If you see, what they typically do is comparable with what you know already from the functional safety assessment. So there are companies that are performing those kind of assessments parallel to the development. So they do not show up only at the end. Here they only receive some work products during the development to already check existing of the security concept of the TARA of whatever. At the end, there is a complete check, and this is where you see they want to see a proof that the activities have been performed. They want to have a proof of all work products, so the security case to be shown, the reviews, so the judgment of all the work products, and all kind of everything that is showing you completeness, conformity here. And this is why depending on the complexity, but this might even take a week to perform the complete assessment if it's a complex product here.
I think on slide 11, you mentioned that it's only relevant on OEM level.
The assessment, no, the UNECE assessment, yeah, this is on OEM level. Exactly. So, and this is why. So, if an OEM knows they need to prove this kind of subset of 21434 to an independent party here to get a type approval, they know they're going to give those requirements back to their suppliers. And this is why it really depends now on this kind of project. If you check the requirements of the 21434, you can see they defined a cybersecurity assessment, but the requirement in the 21434 is not telling you whether this is now mandatory or optional. They just define it a different way. They just say you have to give a rationale for your decision whether you want to perform such an assessment or not. Here. If you compare to functional safety, in functional safety, the safety assessment depends on the ASIL. So it's very easy to see, do we need it or no, we don't need it. In cybersecurity, it's not that easy. So they say in cybersecurity, you need a rationale for the decision if you want to do it or not. And this is why for suppliers, it very often depends on the requirements of the customer. Sometimes the customer is telling you it's enough to get a proof of the process quality in development, so they seek for an automotive SPICE for cybersecurity assessment. Or they say, no, we want to have a proof of cybersecurity for the complete item you develop, then they seek out for an ISO SAE 21434 assessment.
Okay, we are already 1 minute overdue, but we started with the content section a little bit later. I would say we close this webinar now. Thanks again to Timo for this very good presentation, and wish you all a very good evening.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You are the pioneers. With your visions, your ideas, and your passion to make things better. And we are the ones who protect you from pitfalls. We are by your side whenever needed as a true fellow. Reliable, pragmatic, realistic. Together we make your product come alive. Imagine you enjoy improvement. Process Fellows.